Okay, should we start?
We can start.
Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to How to Be a Better Ally. So I'm going to turn off my phone here. So no feedback. How white people can be better allies. Thank you, first of all, to Lauren for doing this.
Of course.
Eternally grateful because I believe a lot of us want to do better and are afraid to ask. And we also, I just want to say this to everyone as a white woman, we don't want to put the labor on all of our Black friends to always say, what do we do? How does this make you feel? Like I can imagine every Black person is getting inundated and the labor shouldn't be on them. The labor should be on us to figure out how to be better allies. So I went to a protest, and one thing that really stuck out on me is the young people. First of all, I was the oldest person there, which made me happy. But all the young people who were running the protest, they were saying white people have to talk to white people. And so having something like this, I think, is so important. And thank you again to Lauren for answering questions. And what we're going to do is I have some questions to ask Lauren, and then I'm also going to be checking the questions that you're asking in the stream, and we'll try to pose some of both. I also just wanted to say, give me 1 sec, my son is going to come take Arlene. I just want to also add that we can all do a better job on social media of policing our feeds and other people's feeds for how Black people are being treated right now. There's a lot of, for lack of a better word, white fragility right now, a lot of like comments that make my head like want to explode. And it's our job on social media to be good allies and police that. That's not a good word, to stop that from happening and step in and be that, you know, guard for them to say this is not okay. Because these are really trying times for especially Black people, for all of us, but they have much more burden than we do right now with the pandemic and with everything else happening, and obviously with what's happening with the civil unrest around our country and how it's impacted Black people. So I'm going to start off with Lauren. The first question, speaking of those issues, how have you and your family's life changed through the pandemic and also during the protests?
So it's been interesting because when things started happening in March, it was, we just didn't know what was going to happen, how things were going to turn out. And I think in previous years when there have been issues with SARS or swine flu, it never really got here. So with Ebola, we were always okay, but something just seemed different this time. And so with the pandemic, with COVID-19, it was, we got something from school, this is canceled. And then it just snowballed. And it was, okay, I'm now officially a homeschool teacher. Not the job that I ever wanted. And you know, I'm a single mom, 4 kids. And you know, from what, 7, 10, 12, and now 14. So it was a lot. But it's always, you got this, you got to do it. You know, their father, my ex-husband, on top of just everything going on with COVID, we're divorced. So you have that layer of things going on. He's also in law enforcement. He's also white. He's Italian and Irish. So it was all of these things that you're hearing about how COVID-19 is disproportionately affecting Black people, and having to have those conversations with the kids. Then add everything that happened with Ahmaud, with Breonna, with, you know, those conversations. And then with George Floyd, it was just like, we always have the conversation because we have to. And the challenge is, again, those layers of, you know, their father, who they are, and yes, they're mixed, but they identify as being Black, and that discussion.
And what is that discussion like for with your sons versus with your daughters? What did you tell them?
I mean, it's very similar because of just their ages at this point. But it is look, this is how you as girls growing into young women should be treated. this is how you should be respected. And with the boys, it's this is how you should be respecting girls. And with the girl, it's back and forth. It's a relationship. And this is how, the basic tenet, I'm a very simple person. It's about the simple golden rule. You treat others the way that you want to be treated. But it is the layer of, okay, well, for the boys, you are going to be considered a threat. My son has grown, he's 12, and it's like the voice is changing, and he's almost as tall as me. I'm 5'8" already. And it's, you might have a cute face, but at some point you become a threat, and for the girls, it's a different sort of threat. It's women and others are going to be intimidated because you are strong, because we're raised to raise, girls to be strong. You have to be that backbone. That is that matriarch of the Black family. Those examples that I had, my mom, who's still here, but my grandmother, my aunties, and then that extended family of those aunties, and the village who's always watching. So it's been a constant struggle of explaining things on their level, but not having them be fearful of what's going on, and trying to explain that, they're at a white Catholic school. It's like, okay, things are different for you versus them. And this is why I'm staying on you with your schoolwork, because the expectation is that you're supposed to fail. You're not supposed to do well. You have this label regardless of what you're doing, just because. And that's.
And have your kids experienced that in school, that kind of discrimination in subtle ways or in overt ways?
Yeah, I think in very obvious ways, with just my son and just how he's been treated with some discipline at times, where I've stepped in and it's like, no, my son's not doing that. If you want my son to acknowledge and put in writing a apology for some behavior, then I want an apology for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are things that I've brought to other people's attention that wasn't handled. Most recently, with my youngest daughter, in her class, during the last week of school, a student put something in the comments, and it was something to the extent of, if you keep acting that way, you'll end up like them. And I'm like, what? And we had conversations, but it was a proud mom moment, because I was getting that, and I saw how her and the other Black students in this class, and this is 4th grade, were like, okay, wait, no, I'm going to say this. They spoke up. And then her and another one of her closest friends, they organized. And as an ILR at Cornell, I'm happy. They organized and they wrote a statement. They taped it. They did their research, fact checking, all of that. But you see it, and it's kind of a normal thing, unfortunately. So you get to a point where you're just tired. And I've said, whether it's school, whether it's with, people that I feel are maybe friends that are white, it's like, look, it's not my job. Like you said, it's not my job to educate you. It's not my job to do the research and say, here's some books, here's some things for you to read. No, we can have a discussion, but you have to recognize sometimes I don't want to talk about it. And sometimes I might have watched a few too many documentaries and realize I really can't white people right now because of the anger and the frustration. And I saw online one day a while ago, it was like, just like you call in sick, you're going to call in Black. It's like, I'm not doing it today. I'm not doing it now.
When you say you're tired, because I think that's really important for us to understand as white people, that like the extra burden that you and your children face every day that we don't face. Like I put up a post, like, imagine having to worry as a white parent about your kid, like getting picked up, walking home from school, like happened to Linda's son. For no reason, the police just picked him up on the way home from school one day because he was Black and he was 13. Tell us about like that experience, like what that extra burden is, every single day of your life, like it, because we can't understand that. Like, how do you think that compares, and what's the health effect? What's the mental health effect for Black people, especially Black mothers?
I mean, I think that from an even playing ground, as parents, you're always worried about your children. We have them for 18, maybe 19 years, and then they're out in the world. But those additional layers are, how are they being treated and spoken to in school? How are you disciplining my child if there's an issue? How are you grading their work? Um, it's when they're out at activities, how are you, I saw my 7-year-old son. It was like a parent wanted to say something because they're playing soccer, and it's like, I'm not saying that you should fight someone, but if a kid is checking you constantly, and finally he was like, I'm done. I'm like, go right ahead. I mean, protect yourself. And it's, how is my child going to be labeled? Are
For
you
protecting himself as opposed to like
right?
a white boy who was acting out on him.
And that was something that one of my oldest son had to deal with school all last year, where he was being empathetic and protecting um, certain kids. And then it was, thank God there was one teacher that recognized, okay, wait a second. And then it, things started to expose itself of, there were all these challenges going on. And it's, I constantly say to the kids, look, people are raised differently, like, and I say, what happens in someone else's house, that's not for me to police and handle. But as your mother, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm saying. This is acceptable. From a mental health perspective, it's hard. I mean, like right now, it's hard for me to really understand what is really happening and what does it mean. And, oh my goodness, can I trust this person, that person? It's a lot for me as almost 45. And I think, how is this affecting my children? How are they looking at people and their loss of innocence? That when I was their age, I wasn't thinking about this stuff. I was thinking about swimming. I was thinking about, ooh, I like that boy. And it's all of that innocence gets lost. um in addition to, I can't follow everything that they do on social media, as much as I try. And so, my oldest daughter saw all sorts of things about, kids in this area too, dropping the N word and this and that. And she's like, can you? And I'm like, I understand. It's unfortunate, but it's happening. And it's unfortunately the world that we live in now.
Can I ask you, like, I speaking of like in your area, I had posted some of the photos. People don't know that they were your neighborhood, but if you were on my feed, tell us about what life is like in your area of Philadelphia, which is a predominantly Black neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the Mount Airy section. It's very residential. I mean, the joke is, oh, you guys aren't really the city, it's the suburb, it's tree lined, lots of, space. And we're right next to Chestnut Hill, which is then predominantly white. Um, and it was weird because I'm active in the area, and someone posted it and I'm like, wait, that's here? I mean, and I ask people that I know that are in law enforcement, do I have something to worry about? And is rioting coming up here? We're residential. And they're like, always be on guard. But then the next day, I said, we needed to drive through to see. I needed to see for myself. And the feeling that I had of just anxiety and driving
Tell
home.
them what you see, because not everyone here will know
So,
what
I
they
mean,
won't have seen the post.
you legit, I mean, we saw I'm assuming it was the National Guard. I mean, we don't know, National Guard, Army, whoever. We don't know who called them in. But it was like every maybe 8 feet from um, Cheltenham Avenue, on up for the most part. There wasn't anything for maybe a block and a half, but you had all sorts of the post office boarded up, the CVS, Family Dollar, Little Caesars, and then that's where you saw, I would say, maybe 8 or 9 congregating together in front of maybe a Hummer, and then you saw every few feet there was someone else, and guns out, ready, and I'm like, it's like 12:30. It's
Yeah,
middle.
I mean, I'd like to know like how many of us on this feed had like
Right.
National Guard in their white suburb. I can tell you none here. I mean, we would never put up with that.
It
I,
was.
I
It
mean,
was.
was there any particular threat in Mount Airy that would cause the National Guard with their
I
AK
don't.
whatever's to be
I
there?
don't know. And that's, I'm texting people and asking, okay, is there something happening? Was there a threat? No one could find that there was supposed to be a rally. Then there was conflicting information. Maybe there was a rally. But again, it's, we're spaced out. We're a little more spaced out here too. And it's not as commercial. There was a rally the following day, which, from my understanding, was organized by 2 people from my high school, younger alums, which was really, it was nice to see. I didn't go. I we're still in a pandemic, and I can't. That's the thing too. Um,
Talk to me about that because I put up a post which was very like I don't know caused a lot of controversy. I think it's braver for Black people to be out protesting right now because of the health risk, because of actually what's happening, because they're
yeah.
getting tased, because the police are strangling them, and other than Mitt Romney with his. I mean, they can both be good things, but tell us as a Black woman what the risk is for you to be out protesting.
I mean, it's disproportionately, we have certain underlying, health issues that, because there is the uncertainty, and I'm not a doctor in any way, shape, or form, we don't know how that necessarily is affected, and contributes to COVID-19. We don't know. There isn't much testing. There is, actually today, one of my sorors, she's leading, I believe she is leading the Black Consortium of Doctors here, and are doing testing at, in predominantly Black neighborhoods. I believe it's at churches, because churches are safe spaces for us. And it's been great. And they just got a grant from the mayor for $1 million. But it's like, you don't know. There's so much uncertainty. So I rather err on the side of caution, because if I go down, then who's going to, like, I'm not going to put that burden, on my mom. I'm not going to put that burden on my boyfriend, and just, like, what do I do? I mean, so it's always having to be me, having to be good mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, so that I can be good for them. Um, but we hear the numbers are going to go up because there isn't necessarily the social distancing. Um, People are out, people are traveling, moving around, people are protesting, which I think is great, but I'm protesting from a distance.
Yeah.
So we watch things on TV, we do our research, and have our conversations, but it's hard. I mean, and again, just that feeling of driving through my neighborhood, an area where, like, it's like a not even a 5-minute walk for me.
And you're in Mount Airy because some people are asking, which is a suburban area, and
It's
yeah,
part of the city. I mean, it's the northwest section of Philadelphia.
yeah,
So it's not, it's, the rally that they had, that was, I think it might have been, all the days are together now. It might have been Saturday. I thought it was interesting because it stopped at Germantown Avenue and Gresham Valley Drive. And as soon as you cross Gresham Valley Drive, it's like you kind of enter Chestnut Hill. And it was like, of course. I mean, I wasn't part of the rally. I don't know about any of the reasons why it stopped there. They stopped, they kneeled, um, had moment of silence, but it's like, no, let's continue going. And it's just a very interesting time. And these are the questions that my kids ask. I'm like, I
What do
don't,
you tell your kids when
you know,
they,
it's like I don't know. You know, we talk right now, there's a lot of emphasis on relationships. And, you know, one of um my closest friends, we met in second grade. I remember we had a conversation in 11th grade, and she said, you know, there's a difference between acquaintances and friends. And that always stayed with me because it is very true. And having that, having these hard conversations with the kids, that is something that I really am stressing to them. And I've said that to friends of mine that are white that I know are actual friends, where, and we talked about this too, if I can't have a conversation with you about race and how I'm feeling, and you don't want to have that, what shouldn't be a tough conversation, but you're hearing about my life and how things impact me, then we're not supposed to be friends. I don't I don't need to be friends with you. I don't need to do small talk with you. It's like, I mean, because I get to listen to what's going on in your life. So why can't you hear about what's going on in my life and how, you know, I don't like what might be happening here, or I don't agree with this policy here. Um, you know, it's very interesting. Um,
so can I take us to the next question? And
yeah,
then I'll ask you a couple more, then let other people ask.
I'm drinking
What?
lemonade, by the way.
Yeah, hopefully there's some, it's spiked. Um, what are some helpful things white people can do in real life or on social media in real time now? People want to help. Give us some ways that we can help. Not just you, like our
Right.
friends.
I think, I mean, speaking for myself and just, you know, friends that I've had conversations with, it's about being present. It's about listening and just being present. You know, people want three things. They want to be heard, they want to be loved, they want to be validated. I mean, so it's listen to what someone is saying. And it's not necessarily because they're coming to you and saying, I want you to give me answers, or this is your fault, or whatever. It's sometimes maybe people want to just rant and vent. Um, you know, so it's listening, but hearing whatever someone is saying. It's validating however you know how to validate someone. I mean, I'm not, when you and I have a conversation, I'm not looking for you to say, okay, here's the plan, this is what we're going to do. No, it's okay, I hear what you're saying, and let me figure out how I can do something or what I can do. And it's okay to say, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. I'm sorry, but, you know, and I know that it's not you personally going out and doing things, but, and just like I'm not the speaker or spokesperson for Black people, you're not the spokesperson for all white people. Um, you know, but it's just, it's those sorts of things, you know, being present and listening. You as a person, do your research and try to understand what's going on and have conversations, but don't expect for me to have a conversation or anyone to have a conversation and then lay it out for you and educate you and explain things to you. Sometimes you just don't want to talk to people. You know, it's like text, send a text message, hey, just checking on you, you know. um
And maybe now is a time, like I find with some of the stuff happening, I don't know enough about it. And sometimes what I'm personally trying to do is elevate voices that are Black voices on social media.
mhm.
But also, you are the voices that should be leading, and the rest of us should be supporting and amplifying and learning. Like
Right.
the stuff with the defund police, I realize how little I know. Like I realize as a white person on this earth, I've seen it secondhand. I've had some issues, you know, locally with neo-Nazis and stuff here, but it's not, I don't have to like worry about getting a speeding ticket and being dead 5 minutes later. So defund police, for example, I find myself learning and just being quiet. And I think white people need to learn it's okay to be quiet.
Right.
It's definitely okay to defer. But tell us more, like, are there specific things that you see that you think we can do better on?
I mean, it's so interesting. You saying neo-Nazi reminds me of, I had a conversation and was explaining to someone just, my mindset of some of my friends, especially people that are faithful. It's like, look, when it comes to Nazis, neo-Nazi, the Klan, white supremacists, they don't like me. Okay, I'm not engaging with them. So unless they come at me, I'm staying away. Um, I am more fearful of liberal white people because I don't know where you stand. Because it's like, okay, are you with me right now because I'm your cool Black friend? I might be your only Black friend, which scares me more, you know. So that it's like you don't know where you stand until something happens, and then you're like, you really weren't a friend. But
Explain that to people, because there was a week when this all started where Charles Blow did a column about how the Amy Cooper was worse than the police in some ways, and then Van Jones went on and said, I'm more concerned about white women who voted for Hillary than the KKK. And I saw like the reaction of like total defensiveness and hang back. But what you touched on that. Can you lay that out really simplistically for us to understand what that means?
I mean, it's that situation where it's like, oh yeah, I voted for Obama, so it means that I like Black people. You know, that was something has been said to me. I voted for Obama, so I can't be racist. I can't be prejudiced. I'm like, that statement alone tells me a lot about you. I mean, it's like, can you get in the trenches with me when I'm going through stuff and have to figure out how to protect and shield my kids from things that are going on? Can you help and go out and say, yes, let's go march and talk about changing policy that is going to protect us as a people, and support our community. And you just don't know. I mean, I am sure that I have more than a handful of people that I know that are white, that are very liberal, but then you sometimes see things that they post on social media, or sometimes they make a comment and it makes you think, okay, you could replace whatever title or whatever group you were talking about with Black person, and you're now talking about me. So your spidey sense kind of goes off. But I think more than anything, and I've seen this even more recently in the past few weeks, liberal white people that fall back on, I can't be racist because I'm Christian and here's scripture, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not thinking that's what Jesus meant when he said that. And so you just don't know, sometimes who you can and can't trust. And when people show themselves now, it's like, okay, there isn't a second chance, because it's about protecting my mental, my emotional, my physical, and my spiritual place of peace. And it's like, look, if I gotta lose so-called friends, I'm good with that. It is what it is. We weren't friends to begin with. But it's very, it's, it's hard for me to understand that and digest that and acknowledge that. So it's definitely even harder for my kids to explain to them, no, they're not really your friend. So I understand you want to go back and say, let's talk about this and make it better. Sometimes it'll work, but sometimes I'm like, nah, they dropped the M word already. So we kind of know that's about.
So I'm going to ask you one more question, and then I'm going to let people on the feed. I'm seeing your your comments and stuff. And thank you for the person who told me to mute. That took away some of Arlene's power in the background. So I'm going to ask Lauren one more question, and then if you all have some questions, I'll moderate in some questions from you. So what are some of the things white people should not be doing right now, or just in general, either on social media or in everyday life? What's the least helpful or no-nos for white people listening in?
I mean, I think it's pushing too hard and trying to speak out of turn, in essence. I think it's one thing to talk about something that you may know about or have some experience with, and bringing that to a conversation. But the pushing too hard and no, let's make a statement, or no, let's talk about this, and no, how are you really feeling? You know, it's the pushing that it's for me, it's a turnoff because it doesn't seem genuine. And I think more than things you shouldn't do, it's just be genuine. And if it's, I don't know what to say, but I'm checking on you, okay. I mean, you should know your friends. And I think it's, you know, I joke about this with people sometimes where it's like, look, if you're about to do something and you're not quite sure about it, dial your one black friend that you know you can trust. You know, send, hey, I was going to post this, but I'm not sure if it was insensitive or not. You know, it's doing things like that. But I think I always feel that if someone is coming from a place of honesty and transparency and being genuine, then if you do something that makes someone feel uncomfortable, they'll say something. And it's like, I mean, I had to say this to someone who I would say we're cool, we're friends. That comment, yeah, you might not want to make that ever again. You know, and it was in jest, and I got what he was trying to say, but I'm like, yeah, no, no. And there's certain things that I will accept from my black friends because they are black, that no, you can't say that, or it's just not appropriate, because there's either an underlying meaning or it's being taken out of context. You know, I I saw this tweet that was, or this picture, and it was saying something to the extent of, and I know I'm going to get it wrong, you know, I wish that white people would love us the way that they love our culture. And I was like, that says it all. You know, it's like,
Explain that to us. Like, what do you,
I mean, you can love hip hop, you can love, you know, graffiti, you can love the style, music, you know, whatever it is from any sort of pop culture perspective, but then the person who's developing it, driving it, creating it, you know, you don't love us as a people, you don't respect us as a people, our history, you know, our history should be part of daily conversation. You know, it's.
and tell us, and then again, I'd love if anyone else has questions, but tell us, like, what should that conversation be? Like, this moment that we're in is bringing things to the surface. Like, how do you experience that? Maybe that's like an hour-long answer, but if you were going to synthesize it down to 101 for basic white people, like, how does that impact you and your daily life and all the other things that you're taking on that you've identified?
So it's like it's one thing if someone is like, hey, I read this article and I'm trying to understand what this article might mean. Have you seen, you know, it's having the natural, very organic conversation about things. And it goes back to whatever sort of relationship that you have with people. You know, I have a friend who's white, and he grew up not in Philly, but went to, you know, school here, college here in Philly. And we had a conversation last summer about, we were talking about curly hair. And I was like, well, I said, I probably have curly hair because along the line, there was some mixing that was going on. Might not be by choice. I said, but that's, you know, our history. And from that, we started talking, and he's got kids. And he just said to me, with everything going on, and he did his check-in, and he's like, you know, he got caught in riots downtown, and he's like, oh my goodness. And we were talking about it, and he's like, I did what you said, and I started having those hard conversations about Black history with my kids. And he's like, they have all these questions, and we're doing this research. And I'm like, and hopefully those will not be kids that will do or say something that could negatively impact my kids, and other kids that look like them. So it's doing those sorts of things that are always very beneficial.
And I want to ask you, because I'm seeing this on social media, this like white fragility, especially with like white men journalists. Like how, heaven forbid the New York Times, mostly women, but actually, Black men as well, speak out about how an op-ed made them feel in danger. It sort of unleashed this undertone of, I call them the mediocre white men, like coming at them for daring to speak up. And we're at this time. Are you feeling, because I feel it on Twitter, like like we're at a moment where things are just like coming up at you as a Black woman for how dare you like have this comeuppance and like try to actually have some equality. Do you feel that?
mean, I feel that I am a Black woman. I am Black before I am a woman. And so from that perspective, it's what I've always been. So it's all I know. I mean, so it's, people will say, oh my goodness, Lauren, I don't know how you do this with the kids, their activities and this and that. And it's like, I mean, well, they got to eat. They need to be taken care of. I mean, so yes, I have my support system, I have my village, but it's all I know. It's what we do. And it's a natural thing. And when you take the Black woman out of the family structure, at least in our family, there would be a breakdown. I mean, because that is your support, your comfort, your advice, your everything. So, I mean, if someone is saying and coming at me, how dare I want, equality? Okay, whatever. At this point, it's like I got to keep it moving. I don't have time to listen to that and allow that devil, that Satan, to steal my peace of mind, because I've got to focus on my kids. I've got to focus on being right for them and right for myself. Um, and but it's also, it's, I don't know. I don't know if you saw the movie, the documentary, I'm Not Your Negro. And it was amazing. And it was very good, but it also, when we walked out, it was like I was angry because there was this one scene of, I think it was a white woman, blonde hair flowing. It was a perfect day, sunny. And I'm like, damn, it'd be nice to have a day carefree moment like that, because that's not what we have. Because you're thinking, am I going to get pulled over? And is this going to happen? Is someone going to come at me at work? Is someone going to be intimidated because I'm speaking up and stating facts and being honest about whatever, but I'm coming off as being an angry Black woman? It's like there's always something. And I'm like, wouldn't that be nice to have that carefree moment, which we don't have, unfortunately.
That impacts your health, I'm sure. And I was going to ask you about anger, like how you hold your shit together, because as a white woman experiencing like the sexism that we deal with in this world, then I think about that and what you're coupling onto it, which is some of the things you're describing, like, and I've known you for a long time, and you're like very steady, very kind of cool. Like the shit I see now on Twitter makes me want to like jump through the screen at some of these people going after Black women. And it feels like it's just gotten so much worse since
it has.
Protests started. Like, how dare they? So what is like that anger? Like, what does that feel like?
I mean, you handle it in your own way. I mean, I'm very blessed that I have a partner that I can talk to, and we vent about things and I rant about things. But I try to stay busy and do things to help with my mental place. I'm a very faithful person, so I always feel, okay, there's a lesson in all of this to be learned. What is it? You know, um, but there are moments where you really do just lose your mind, and I have those people that I can have those conversations with, and it's like, okay, I'm okay now, but then it's okay, what am I going to do to make things better? Who am I going to give money to? You want to help what's going on right now, give money, but give money to organizations that are run by Black people, because
Can you
that
give us some examples of
um,
organizations that you recommend?
I, off the top of my head, right now, can't. I just got a list. I
Okay,
got a
you
list.
can hand them to me and I'll post
Yeah,
them.
I'll send it to you. Um, but it's do that. It's go and support Black businesses. Go to Black restaurants. Go to Black boutiques. Online, in person when things open up. Um, Go to Black churches and worship with us. The richness one of the things that I love about my parish is it is a culturally rich parish. And I mean, I was raised AME, I converted to Catholic. And that church family is welcoming and open. And I love it. But talk to people. It's put your phones down, walk over and talk to someone. Hey, how's it going? If you see someone who is stopped by the police, or if you see someone that might be in distress, it's like, stop and just be there to make sure, okay, you're okay. Stand up for someone. I had an incident like that happen by me, where it was like some older guy was verbally attacking this older woman, and I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, and it was stepping in. I called his place of work, reported it, doing those things. Those are important in value, but support those people that definitely could use the help and the support, um, moving forward, for sure.
And I saw someone mention the term microaggression, which I went through training and I learned a little bit about that. Maybe can you describe to us microaggressions and what we as white people can do to alleviate that in any way? And just like, I think identifying the microaggressions might
Now,
help us to understand the situation is a little better.
I would say, don't say, if it's not going to be nice, don't say it at all. I mean, and so many
Can you
times
explain to everyone what micro, I think that's an important term, like for white people to understand, or do you want me to give a go at it, or do you want to explain?
it's when someone says to a Black person, I'll just give an example, you you speak so well, or you articulate that so well, and it's like, even in their tone, and you're like, I mean, so am I supposed to be speaking in Ebonics? I mean, I had a teacher say to me, um years ago, she said, your children are always dressed so well. And it was like, and I had it with this teacher, and I was like, I mean, so are they supposed to come to school soiled and disheveled? I mean, like, is that what you? And she's like, well, I didn't mean it that way, but your intent might have been to compliment, but that's not how it was received and how it really came out of your mouth. So it's those sorts of underlying knife in the back comments that you're like, okay, I see you, and now I know who you are, and now I know how to really approach you. Um, those are the sorts of things that you're like, did they just say that? They did. And the scary thing is that I feel right now there's a lot of people know what they're doing. They just choose to ignore that they know what they're doing. And they choose to do negative things, harmful things, disrespectful things. And those are the people that, again, go into that group of that you fear more because it's like, but you knew what you were doing and you still chose to do it. And when you do it to the babies, when you do it to kids, it's like, what you're not going to do is come after the kids, because I mean, then we're really going to have a problem. And that's,
Let's talk about the kids. And I mean, I live in an area, white suburb, which is being sued for systemic racism. And I'm ashamed of what happened in my community. And the reaction here of white people was very much exactly what you said. Oh, I voted for Obama. Oh, I'm a Democrat. So, and Michelle Alexander wrote about that in her piece, which everyone should read too. So it's not me. I'm not racist. But yes, you are racist because this is happening in our community and you're allowing it. What is the conversation you would want to have if you saw something like that or whatever, it happened in your community? If you were being honest with me as somebody, and I'm not Amy, I'm just this random white woman you met, and you saw that kind of thing, what is it that you would want to say, not only to me, but for me as a mother to understand for their children that it's not enough that you voted for Obama and therefore you're not a racist? Like, what are intervention kind of things you can do, and what does that feel like as you're experiencing it?
It's speaking up, and it comes into, being that ally. And that's a conversation that I consistently have with people is, even at the school level, at the activity level, and I've said this, until a white person who has money and influence speaks up and says what Black and brown parents are saying, there typically is not going to be any movement. I mean, I can go on and on about diversity, inclusion, and it's not about having a seat at the table. It's having a seat and a voice and influence at that table that is, what creates diversity. It's like I could go on and on and on about that, but I could have a rich white family come and say the same thing, and then it's done immediately, depending upon situations and what it is. But that's the thing. When someone who has that influence, has that power, has that money, because the dollar talks, then typically you'll see at least a conversation about things. And it's unfortunate, but that's reality, especially in schools where you're paying tuition, because it's like, okay, I mean, it is my voice where my kids might have a scholarship or might have, any sort of aid. Like, you feel that maybe I can't really speak up because I don't want to lose that. And that's reality. But it's, when you have someone who is an ally, who has your back, who, when things get rough or you're being, you're the one that's being attacked, they come to your defense and doesn't just walk away or back off. That's what we need to see more of.
And I just want to recap, just in this short time, we've talked about the discrimination and systemic racism your kids face at school and you face as a parent in school. We've talked about the different treatment that the police give in your community versus a white community, the microaggressions at work, on social media. So these are every day you're getting this kind of stuff. So
yeah.
I think for those of us, so I'm a white ally. Everybody who's listening into this wants to be a white ally. And my hope is everyone then goes off and branches out to their white friends, because we started off with white people need to tell white people what to do and da, 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 da. What are things that we can do in everyday life, to be an ally? Give us some concrete examples if you can, or
be there and show up. Be there and show up, and you write the email and say, okay, this is something that needs to be changed, whether it's in school or at a school or at work. This is something that I've seen, and I want to speak up and say that this person is being treated unfairly, or you know what? Hey, and I know it's a stretch when it comes to work because there's compensation that's part of it, but it's making the comment of, you know, I'm not the person for this role. Have you considered this person? Um, it's those sorts of things, and being present and stepping up, stepping in when you see something that is happening that shouldn't be happening. Um, every day, all day. Um, we experience it. You feel it. When you're shopping and someone is, you can obviously tell they're being profiled. It's having that conversation with that manager. Um,
If a white person sees that, or if a white person, in other words, if white people see these things happening in the world,
right.
and if anyone didn't see it, I'll repost it on my page. There's a beautiful, it was on Twitter, of a white woman, a black young boy jumped over, he must have been like in high school or maybe college, jumped over a barrier and the cops were coming, and this white girl who must have been like 90 pounds jumped over and stood in front of him like this, and then like crowded over him so the police couldn't get at him. And that might be a metaphor for what all of us, if we, and it's great to go to the protests, it's great to be on social media. I think what we need to do as white people is be the person, be that 90-pound girl that stands in front of the black kid, because the police, she knew the police were not going to hit her. They
Yeah.
would hit him. And she was like a buffer for him.
Right. Because you saw the video I had posted where it was like the police like knocked the grandmom over when the kid, drove to his grandmother's house, and it was a supposed traffic. He supposedly drove to a stop sign, and you got 4 or 5 cops, guns drawn, and he went to his grandmother's house. And I mean, that was 2 days ago, and I was watching it, and my kids heard me, and it was like I had slammed my hand down and was just like, are you effing kidding me? It's like, you knocked a grandmom down. She's got a cane. I mean, like, come on.
Yeah.
And it's step in, it's be present, it's speak up. How would you feel? And it's, what would Jesus do? What would you do if that were happening to you or your child or your mother, your grandmother? How would you feel, and how would you want that situation to be mitigated, to be helped? Just that's how you need to act. Is it going to change overnight? No. The big question is, what's the end game here? What do we foresee happening? I don't know. I feel that
What would you like to happen from this?
I would
There was one thing that we could accomplish from all of this. What would that be?
I think about my kids and just education and equality there. I think it's going to be scary, given that we're in a pandemic also, and we don't know, are they going back to school? So those schools that have the means to be able to have kids come back, because they can put up plexiglass or whatever it is that they'll be able to do, or can create an environment for the kids to be safe. Those are the students that are going to fare better than those who are at schools that can't do that for whatever reasons. They don't have those means for whatever reasons. So I think about the equality with education, because that is the foundation from which everything grows. It's that white people start to really have that conversation about just race. I mean, we're not going to teach about color. Oh, funny, because my kids learn about color. My kids learn about slavery from the womb. Like, what are you talking about? You're going to start learning about slavery in 7th grade. Oh, is that the ripe age that mentally you're ready for it? Because that's not what happens, for us. So it's having the tough conversations. It's having any sort of conversation. It's
Breaking it down really simple with your kids to say, what if a kid did this to you and made you feel this way because you look different?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I've seen it. I think everybody who's listening in has experienced racism firsthand and struggled with at that moment, like, what do you do with this? Like, I remember at a Starbucks where I live in my community, there was a guy who was like, kept yelling at this woman he wanted his coffee. There was a long line. He wasn't happy. And finally, I mean, I'm tall, so I'm 5'8". I walked over to him. I said, enough. And another guy walked over and said, enough. He was at her and and then, he was just like at her. And then he made some comment that clearly he was a Trump supporter and blah, 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 and walked out without his coffee. But I think in those moments, I can't imagine like the burden that it's carrying and what a relief it must feel like to have a white person stand in front.
I mean, the microaggressions are definitely even stronger too, because it's like you want to say things and sometimes you're like, I'm not going down that rabbit hole because there are so many things that I want to say. There's so many things I could say, but when they go low, we go high. It really is just like I want to be petty, real petty, but I'm not because one, I don't have the energy, I don't have the time, and I'm not going to do it. And then sometimes it's like, oh, I'm going to be petty, you know? I mean, one of those microaggressions too is like about hair. I mean, my hair is pulled back now, but I have spirally hair. And between the questions, and it's not questions, it's can I touch your hair or just whatever, braids especially, the ongoing conversation about braids and how did you do that? And just, it's like, I mean, again, it goes to their genuine questions and comments. And then there's just the microaggression of you're being obnoxious. And please don't do that.
So I know a lot of people wanted to watch Oprah at 9 and it's 8:58. So if you have a final thought, first of all, I want to thank you. You're a dear friend and thank you for doing this and for your time and for your labor, for trying to teach us white people to be better allies. And we all are always work in process. Is there anything else in these last 2 minutes before everyone switches over to watch Oprah that you think we should know that I didn't cover in the questions?
Yeah, I think it's just echoing what we've talked about, which is, be present and listen, and really just take a look inside and say, how would I want this situation to be handled if the table were turned? How would I feel if that were my child? How would I feel if that were me? And how would I even be able to survive and navigate through? Because, the last thought is I love being Black. I mean, it's the only thing I know, but we are a forgiving race. We are an understanding race. We are a strong race. But it's a tweet I saw that was something to the extent of, be happy that we just want equality, you know, um, which is deep because you're like, yeah, I mean, we're just asking for equality. We're not asking for anything else, which we could, my ancestors built this country. They built the economy, through slavery, and they built everything else with their hands. I mean, so respect us and learn from us, but listen and hear us. Um, yeah, I would say that's it.
You're the best.
I'm
Thank you
gonna have to
everyone for
watch.
listening. I saved it and I'm going to post it on for people that came in late that are asking me in comments. I think it saves itself so you can re-listen, but I'll post this as well. Lauren had me record it so you can share it on Twitter or whatever. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Tell the kids hello.
I will.
Okay, bye.
Bye.